everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Universe Within podcast. This episode of the show is being sponsored by the Amazonian Plant Healing Center, the Temple of the Way of Light. The temple is a place I've worked at for about the past 10 years, decade now, and I can really attest to the quality of the work they do. Predominantly, they're working with the plant medicine ayahuasca, working in a lineage of a group of people called the Shipibo people. They have a center outside Iquitos in Peru, which is the biggest Amazonian town in the Peruvian Amazon. And they run 12-day retreats. There's 6 ceremonies in that time, so it's an opportunity to go really deep, to work with a number of ceremonies, working with 4 Shipibo doctors, healers, curanderos, 2 to 3 facilitators. They have pre-ceremony yoga teachers, bone doctors, herbalists, an amazing support staff and integration teams. So it's really an amazing opportunity to go really deeply into this work. They've unfortunately been closed since March of 2020, but they're scheduled to open next month in August of this year. So if you'd like more information about them, you can check out their website at templeofthewayoflight.org. And then also myself and my colleague Merav Artsy, we just finished a dieta, a retreat here in upstate New York. And we're going back to the Sacred Valley of Peru and continuing to run diets in the Sacred Valley near Urubamba. And that's a really amazing opportunity to go really deeply into the world of plant medicine, into the tradition we've predominantly been trained with, working with tobacco and different trees, and going into a period of isolation, fasting, and really experiencing the healing benefits, the psychological benefits, and the spiritual benefits of a really ancient process of working with these plants and trees. So if you'd like more information about that, our next dieta will be in September. You can visit my website at nicotianarustica.org and Merav's site at tobaccodiets.com. My guest for today is my very old friend John Keegan. John and I met a number of years ago in New York, where we were sharing similar interests, and he developed, I think, a really interesting and beautiful career path, which is a relationship coach, and really basing it upon a lot of principles of being in the present moment, of breaking down barriers, of overcoming internal fears. So while this podcast isn't maybe directly related to a lot of plant medicine work, I think a lot of the principles he's speaking about really go hand in hand, because it's actually getting to the root of the same things that hold a lot of people back and kind of keep people from being in that state of flow, of harmony, of peace, of joy. So it was a really good conversation. I enjoyed catching up with him and speaking with him, and I think and hope you all will really enjoy this episode. As always, if you're able to support the podcast, that's a really big help. Patreon is a really good option. It's a subscription service for as little as $1 a month. You can subscribe. There's a few different tiers. There's, I think, $1, $3, $7. And that gives you some really nice added benefits, things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. So that's a really big help to me to be able to continue to bring on these guests. Also with YouTube now, there's an option to join. It's basically the same tiers, but you can do that via YouTube. There should be a little join button down below this video. There's also the option to direct donate via PayPal, and I'll put a link to all of those in the show notes. And if you're not able to do that, simply subscribing to the show is a really big help. So going in the YouTube channel, subscribing to the show, turning on the notification bell, liking the video, that's a really big help. And then with the audio version, going on Apple Podcasts, I think now it's called following the show, and leaving a starred rating and a review is also a really big help. So thank you all for the support. I hope you enjoy this episode, and without further ado, here is my conversation with John.
Running out from the maze, running out of the maze today. Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, running out from the maze today. I'm running out from the maze, running out from the maze, run out of the maze today.
All right, let's just go. Just improv, right?
Yeah, just
All
improv.
Right. All right, let's think about it. All right. Okay, I have a wife, 3 kids. and going through a divorce. Got it. That's it. Okay.
So that's kind of a good intro because we met, I don't know, how long ago was it?
Yeah. I tried.
2003, 4 maybe?
Yeah. Well, when did you first adapt?
I moved here in 2002.
Yeah, and then how soon after did you start taking that
Pretty
acting
soon.
class? Yeah, so that's when we met, because that's when
Yeah.
I was there. That's amazing. I can't even believe that.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Yeah. And when people ask me how long I've lived in New York, I always stop at 10. I like 10. I don't just leave it there. Yeah.
So I met you in Tom Waite's acting class.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was an amazing place.
It was an amazing place. It was an amazing time because it really felt like something was happening. It was so much creative energy and so many unique personalities that were really like found their home, and they were coming there to bring their A game, and then it just kept going, like leveling up every week after week after week. So. And then we had a professional photographer who was so inspired, he just had to come by and start capturing everything. Memo Zach, yeah, he had to keep coming by, capturing everything. We had the mad genius director. Right? Yeah, it was a special time.
Yeah, it really was. So what initially drew you to acting?
Oh yeah, I mean,
because you studied with it in the Stanford Meisner tradition in Philadelphia.
Yeah, Sanford Meisner tradition,
Meisner, yeah.
And there was a guy named Sidney Kay, and Sidney was an old school, and he had was Sanford Meisner's main guy for like a few decades, coaching with him, and at one point he decided to move to Philadelphia, where I was from, in the suburbs, and so literally like this guy moved into my neighboring town. And at the time, I always wanted to be an actor, but I didn't really know how to go about it. Just in like a suburban town. And a girlfriend, my first girlfriend, I kept saying I want to be an actor, and she was actually looked up how I could be an actor. And she found that guy. And then I was like, I was kind of nervous to go to the class, and then I went to the class. And then right away, it was like, wow, this guy's amazing. And it was literally like studying, for me, like studying with a... I'm young. I'm like became a disciple, and so it was like studying like with a Buddha or a Zen master, a guy. And in a way, this kind of acting is this sort of everything's about living truthfully in the moment, being authentic in a moment-to-moment way by listening, relating, and responding with the other people, with the other person, with your own breath, with the moment. And so in this way, it was following this. This became, how can I be my real self? And the whole technique of the Sanford Meisner technique is to free your true persona under an imaginary circumstance. So, you're you and I were two bank robbers in the 1930s. You're always messing the job up, and I'm trying to figure out how to get us through this day so we won't get arrested and we get our next meal, and we have all that going, and that could be the imaginary circumstances, but then in there we have to free our own truth in a real moment to moment way and not play cliches. And what I found fascinating about it was that Sidney Kay and Sanford Meisner before him, and those kind of teachers, they sit there for their entire lives helping people break out of the fake persona they created for themselves, the mask. And when they sit in front of people, they're always wearing a mask, protecting themselves, projecting themselves in a way they'd like to be seen, or they think they'd like to be seen. And really, like that kind of work, they do an exercise, one of the main exercises called the word game, and it's all about listening, relating, and responding to the other person, not your own ego identity. So that could take months and months, and if you did like a hardcore schooling of that like 2-year program that they have, it would be the first 6 months would just be this game, and then tearing away all your false selves. So that you could just literally easily connect with another person as yourself, but as yourself, not an idea of yourself, as yourself in the moment as you present yourself. by listening, relating, and responding to your own breath, to the moment, to the other person.
I mean, that was kind of a revolutionary idea, right? Because a lot of acting, even when you look back at like, and for any of the audience, I think this will eventually tie into to maybe a larger picture of things like spirituality, living in the present, even plant medicines. But a lot of Greek theater used to be this idea of putting on masks, like playing the archetype.
Right.
Like, now I'm the angry person, and you put on an angry mask. Or
Right.
now I'm the sad person, and I put on a sad mask. And playing these archetypes. And there's something powerful about that. But really, this idea of what you were talking about is the opposite of that. It's like peeling away the masks to reveal who you truly are.
Right.
So what do you think was that shift where, because I think when a lot of people think about acting, you know, I remember we were talking about this the other day, like we used to go to Times Square to where Broadway was, and we were probably the only two guys who had seen every single theatrical show, but only the second half.
Yeah, just the intermission. Yeah, that's true. Like, that's an amazing story. Yeah.
Because we would sneak in, because we didn't have any money to go see shows. So we'd find out, we'd look at the playbill, see how long the show was, do the math, basically find out when intermission was, and then just kind of walk up, smoke a cigarette outside when the crowd came out. And then when they went back in, we'd just go in with the crowd, and we just like look around. We wait till everyone sat down, look around, hoping that there was a couple seats open.
Yeah, because some people would inevitably be bored, or just they'd leave. They did what they wanted to do, and then we'd go in, and then there'd be times where we'd be like walking around looking, and people. The show was so good, there was no empty seats. We're like, oh, we'd have to talk. We lost our place. But that was amazing. And some of those plays we read, so we knew the story. We taught the story. Yeah, that was cool.
But I always, I mean, I don't know if you have the same memory, but I remember being very disappointed because almost all of the theater we were watching was terrible.
Yeah.
And for me, it was because people were playing that idea of putting on these masks. You know, this idea of like acting, like, you know, going up on stage and putting on this persona, and it was terrible.
And playing to the audience. Right.
And a lot of the audience seemed to love it. But even what I noticed in the audience is they loved it because they were also in that cosmovision of, I need to like this. Like, this is an experience, and they're showing me something, therefore it's good. But it lacked spirit. It lacked something that moved me in a way that some theater, when I had seeing it myself in the beginning and then participating in it, it was actually a very religious experience. There was something about this stillness, about the peeling away of these layers, where there was like such a presence and such an engagement that it in a way transcended space and time. And there was, and I don't use that word lightly, but there was a religious experience that happened.
Yeah, no, that's, and I think, well, when you see acting that is amazing, it's really rare. When you really connect with those certain actors, like I remember we saw one play, The Pillow Man. We got to see halfway through, and it had like Jeff Goldblum and this guy Billy Crudup and some other, and there were some moments in that one that were really good. They were really on top of it. You know, it's like, but like an example of when there was a change was when the natural acting shifted was that Stanislavski and Anton Chekhov was the playwright. Stanislavski was the acting teacher, and they shifted the whole world to natural acting. And then there was a progression that happened over decades. And then one guy one day showed up in a movie named Marlon Brando, and it was like someone parted the sea. The whole rest of the movie, everyone was talking like 1930s actors real fast, and yeah, you see, yeah, that's good, chump, yeah, I love you, all right, man, you know, that whole thing. And then this guy came, and all of a sudden black and white became color, and then that inspired generations of people, and to this day. So most acting we see, some better than others, is rooted in this my true persona kind of acting. finding that unique thing, right? Like Bruce Willis tapped into his unique persona and he shares it, and then, he might become a cliche of himself at one point, but at one point he really tapped into it, or a lot of actors, and then become movie stars just based off of that. Whereas Johnny Depp moves more into, he has that and then he adds all these characters on top of it, right? And again, sometimes he's amazing and sometimes he becomes a cliche of himself, right? Because he's got to be, he's got other pressures besides just being an actor. Movie producers and things. But yeah, I think that that persona, that to find that pure art thing, and that's what we were looking for. That's who we were then, right? Which is probably why we're not famous as actors, right? Because that's really what we care about. Like we had like stupid codes, like I wouldn't do a commercial, we wouldn't do any of that. We were just really looking for the truth. And that's what we were looking for. We were looking for the truth the best way we could find it. And it was through this avenue, how we could find our authentic self and really connect to that and really share that. And we really believed that that was the most powerful thing in the world. And that's where we were at. And that's why we were doing that. And we were going to figure out our way. And I do think when we got to experience that, when you're doing those scenes, when you're finding those moments, even though you have nothing, you have your day job, you have to make the rent. We were constantly busy, right? You're constantly working on a scene, trying to do stuff, trying to have a life. It was a lot. But I remember thinking at one point, having gotten a few roles in, some little bit of movie here and there and things like that, that this isn't what I thought it would be. I thought it would be something more than this, or you seems like you can only get to this one point, be the one, the 1% at the top of this thing that get to do the really interesting stuff. So I kind of felt like, even if I could have been the guy who got all the commercials and all that, that wasn't what I was there for. That wasn't what I would just be a guy with making money with a career, and that would be cool. But I was there for this other experience. And I wasn't really finding it. Yeah.
So do you remember that kind of transition to where you became interested or started going down that path of what you're doing now? And what drew you to that?
Well, what drew me to that was I personally felt a lot of, it was again like this search for taking this persona, this truth thing, and taking it to the streets. What I found was one of the things that makes an actor really love acting is the high that you get when you're connecting with another person in a heightened awareness. There's a heightened awareness when there's people watching, and all of a sudden you tune in like you never tune in your life, because in your life you're always thinking, if you ask yourself how much am I really with people when I'm with them? Usually it's like I'm there, but I really kind of want to be somewhere else, or I should be somewhere else, or something about this moment's making me uncomfortable, or whatever. But when in acting, you really tune into the moment. You can feel the blood running through your veins. You can feel your breath going in and out. It's like you become this hyper aware, and then you can tune into this other person. And there was this freedom that I would feel, that you generally would feel, that you're free from the mind, you're free from the past, you're free from the future. And I remember very specifically at the time, that I was always like, I never had enough money. I was always bouncing checks and, getting that stupid overdraft thing. And I was, living in, which was fine for me, but I was living, if you remember, I was living in a hoarder's lair, I like to call it, where there's a guy who I rented a room from on the Upper West Side, beautiful neighborhood, and he had this old 2,000 square foot rent stabilized apartment, and I rented a room in the back. And it was just, even paying him, I could hardly come up with that rent to have that luxury. So it was like those kind of things, and then just general probably habits of negative thinking that I had from my whole life, and then my poor diet at the time, and we would go out drinking at the time, so all these things create negative frequencies within me. But in those moments I discovered this now thing, this wow, that's that powerful now. And I was so obsessed with this idea, how can I get more into the now? And then I found Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And I read the book, and I used to have this sales job. I remember I had the company car that we would park illegally, and I thought we were getting away with it until they came to me and said, you got all these tickets. That was part of our Broadway show. We would literally just pull up in front of a Broadway show, park in front of a fire hydrant, and they'd be like, I don't know, it's a big company, they're never going to know. And yeah, so and we'd go in. But
don't park in front of fire hydrants.
Yeah, don't park in front of fire hydrants. I'm exaggerating a little bit. We were definitely parking in a spot where we'd be like, I don't think you should park here, but yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so I just got really into listening. I would drive around listening to that all day, every day, in New York, in the traffic, and thinking about. And he would be like, by changing your energy by constantly practicing and then being in the present, by stilling your mind, your circumstances will change. Now, it was hard for me to believe that because what I had seen my parents be and what I had been is, maybe a little less than them, but it was sort of like life happens to you. It's just everything's just happening to me. Everything's just happening to me, right? So I started to realize that what he was saying is that everything that's happening to you is you created it. And I was like, it's hard. I was wrestling with this idea. Sometimes I'd be like, wow, it's so amazing. I'm so inspired. Sometimes I'd be like, oh, fuck this guy. Who is this guy? Right? So, because when you're not enjoying the circumstance or the situation, you want to blame something other than yourself, especially when you don't see how it happened. So, but over time, I just kept listening to that and trying to discover what he was talking about and going back to this simple thing where there is no problem in the now. And I knew that was true because every time I got into the now, I felt euphoria, exhilaration. And over time, obviously, my circumstance changed amazingly, actually, unbelievably. I've been all over the world coaching people. I've done well for myself. I'm having a great life. I'm happy most of the time, all that. So, but what I got into was this idea of being social, for flirting with women, we would get ourselves into a lot of situations where we would be able to network in this acting and theater, and I would find myself around people that I deemed to be higher status than me, having more achieved than me, and or if I was around women that I thought were highly attractive, and then all of a sudden I felt like I wasn't enough. There was that feeling like I'm not enough, and then I have to figure something out. And then what I realized, back in college, I majored in psychology, and I particularly like B.F. Skinner, which was like behavior modification, change how to fade in and change behavior. And I was like, well, what I need to do is go out onto the streets of New York, and I need to start approaching strangers, and I need to approach attractive women and just everybody, and start this idea of improving with regular people, this feeling I'm getting in this acting thing on the streets. And so if I saw a woman that I thought was attractive, I would walk up and say something like, oh, do you know where, which way that is? And then she would be like, oh, yeah, it's this way. And I'd say, oh, thanks. And we'd have like a moment back and forth, and I'd walk away. And then I would do things like, these aren't great tricks, but I would do things like, hey, that's a beautiful dog, and do that. Or if I see an old man, he's walking with an umbrella, I'd say, hey, something about the umbrella, or something about the clouds coming in, or if it was a sunny day, I would just walk by people, and I made this assignment. The first 5 people I see, I'm going to say something to. I'll make a comment, I'll wave it hello, and I'm going to immediately go outside of my head. Because in my head, it was not fun. It was always like going backwards, spinning, looping on negative. And so in there it was terrible. So, or projecting about something in the future. So I would just go out, and I was finding this, I can be present. Just simple gift. I discovered in improv, I can do it on the street by going out and connecting with all the people around me. And then, of course, I knew that, or I believed that there was blocks I had that I needed to go through. Like, I thought about, me feeling inadequate with dating the women I really wanted to date. And I thought, people build empires, so that then it's like, oh, here, now look, now you will come to my nest, And I thought, well, I'm going to go directly into the fire, and that's the only way through this for me, is to go directly into the fire, because that's the kind of same thing we were doing all the time, going into the fire and the emotional fire. So I would go in over and over, and I started to discover, like, wow, I all of a sudden tapped into all that charisma that I discovered in acting, and I brought it out into the streets, and I took that simple process of listening, observing people, saying what I saw to them in the moment that I saw it, and then listening to them and relating with them and empathizing with them, and then flirting with them in certain situations, and then moving past all these points where I felt like internal, like, resistance to, say, ask a girl out on a date, or give her a compliment that I genuinely thought, where I was just learning to really give freely, or give without worrying about receiving. And I started to tap into that, and I was going about it from this idea that I'm practicing the power of now. This isn't about John getting a girlfriend or John having sex. This is about John, every time he walks past that resistance point, that fear point, that angst point, every time I step on the other side of that, I become more me. I become more me, and that's good for me. That's good for everybody I meet. It's good for the world, because that's one more person not living a lie. So that's what it was. And then I, at that time, you and I had also just gotten really into health food. We were into the raw vegan. We had met Dr. David Jubb, and he was teaching us a lot about the plants, right? He was teaching us about the healing properties. And you had discovered him just walking down the street one day, right? And then you were like, we got, because we were already trying to figure, well, that was a whole journey, right? Where we thought the Indian cab driver's food was the healthiest food. We would stop at the cab driver's place, and you're like, look, this is the Indian food's healthy, and I would eat it, and my stomach would be like, no, something's not right. And then we kind of figure our way to pure food, Yeah. Because there's a lot of oils in that food. Anyway. Yeah, so I had already gotten healthy. I'd gotten into this spiritual mindset, and then I took it out to the streets. Then it just became a matter of, I had a friend who was always, an entrepreneur, and he was always thinking, 'cause I would meet a lot of cool people in the Upper West Side. There's a lot of people who, it's different than, say, like living in the East Village, where it's all young people. It was like people who did already made things happen. I just happened to be living in a hoarder's lair, but I presented well, and so and he kept saying, you should make a business out of that. You should do that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do Shakespeare. I'm going to do this stuff, and that's what I'm doing. And he said, no, there's something here. You should help people meet people. You should help people connect with people. You should help people get past their shyness. And I kept thinking, yeah, that's, I'm on this other, there was delusional? There was a delusional thing, like, this is going to happen, and anyway, long story short, there was a point where I was like, I was having a lot of cognitive dissonance. I'm working for a company in sales. I don't really identify with this. This isn't who I thought I would be. I'm not really bringing my best self to that. And then this doesn't seem to be really working out, this acting stuff. I need to come up with something else. It was just like, this isn't a life I want to live. It was really like, to be exaggerate, I could say, I'd rather die. I felt like that. I'd rather die than do this anymore. So, but it was just, I don't want to live this way. So I simply did what I could, and this is 2007, I put an ad on Craigslist. And that was back, Craigslist was actually a thing. And I put an ad on, like, hey, awaken to a new reality, learn to meet and connect with people anywhere and everywhere. And I didn't know who would respond or whatever, so I just said, like, awaken. I just put awaken. And that was it. No name, no nothing, no website. It was just, you respond to this ad, and then I'll write back to you. And what was interesting is people responded. And it was, I was gearing it more towards men at the time. And men responded. And they were cool guys. They were interesting. They weren't like, the people that people would be worried about or something like that. And then what I had done, I met this guy, and we went into Central Park, and we walked from one side of the park to the other, and I was just waving at people, saying hi. It was like I was in the zone, and he was watching me, and he said, "Oh, wow, that's amazing! Oh, wow!" And he gave me $100. That's what I said. Just give me $100 for that. That's all I knew. Right? But even though I had been paid in lots of ways before, I never felt better than that. I just made something up out of thin air that I'm having fun being me, and some guy gave me $100, and my brain lit up. Like, this is possible. And I kept getting more people, and then I started realizing, how can I add in, make a program? I had to make a program. Like, how can I actually help these people? I really wanted to help people go where they wanted to go. And so I started, we're going to start with meditating. We're going to start with stilling our mind. And I would just do these, Eckhart Tolle style meditations where you get into your body. And then I would give like a guided visualization of them seeing themselves in another way. And I would just start playing around with it. And then I came up with programs. And then over time, I came up with some really good programs. And then I kept raising my prices more and more to actually make a living out of it. And, by 2009, I had gotten in the New York Times as, big story of this guy, this Hitch character, this Hitch character in New York. And then that became a whole, mainstream media thing. Then I'm in Marie Claire, Men's Health, Entrepreneur Magazine. And it goes on to this day. I'm the #1 dating expert on WikiHow. And it just kept going. So I had that kind of stream going where I would get on Fox and Friends in the morning or other live TV shows, and that was exciting. So all that acting stuff was really coming into play, the improv. And then of course I also had a street credibility. People kept hearing about me and referring me, and I'd do a lot of public speaking. So all the stuff that we had worked on started to come to fruition in its own way, and I got to be my own man in a very strange way, in a way I could have never planned or thought of. I never would have thought of. And then I would meet all kinds of people all around the world. And, even though I had started as, okay, I'm the expert above somebody, I still had a lot to learn. And all along the way, I was meeting all these people that were different than me, that were way more advanced than me in many other areas of life. So I started learning what they would have. So here I was, a poor actor, and suddenly I'm helping a CEO of a hedge fund, or a doctor, or a director, or just a college student. But it was like I'm all walks of life, every background possible, every religion possible, everyone, So it was really amazing. So I learning from them, and learning their skills, and then and I would meet a lot of tech people. People in their head who lived in their head all day, and I would help them free themselves. And then I would learn a lot of things I would have never learned, which also changed my life, And then, so that was the journey. And then, of course, I worked with a lot of women as well, and I started figuring out programs how I can help women, and then always finding a way to make it fun for myself. I kept always, because, things get stale, you get doing a routine, and because the best thing I'm good at is improvisation, not just on a stage, but in life, so I just kept always finding a way, hey, I feel dreading doing this today. Make it fun for yourself, constantly making it fun for myself so that it's fun for everyone else. So that's kind of been that journey. And I did get to do it all over the world, and South America, Europe, other places, wherever other places in the world are. Yeah.
It was reminding me again about this idea of taking masks off and freeing oneself. Why do you think that's so important? And because what came to mind, there's a Zen story. I know everything can be relayed as a Zen story, but there's this one where there's a teacher. He has all of these students, and one day the king invites him to give a speech. And he gives the speech, and he comes back to his students, and he says, I can't be your teacher anymore. And the students look at him like, why? You're this great teacher. The king is having you speak. And he says, because I got sweaty palms. And the point of that story was, for him, his whole teaching was about equilibrium, about finding the middle, finding the center. And yet when he was invited by the king, he got nervous. he wouldn't have gotten nervous in front of his students or in front of an
right.
average person,
Yeah.
but because he was the king, in his mind, he still had these masks on, these ideas of this is a more elevated person, or this is a famous person, or this is a person of
Right.
power. And for him, that was a separation, it was a division, and it was antithetical to his teaching, which was about union, about wholeness. And it's something I see with a lot of people. I mean, even just now, especially in kind of, without getting too much into politics, but the political climate where it's all about identity. I am the color of my skin. I am my gender. I am this. I am this. And seeing how people
And
react
you are
in
that.
way.
And you are
that.
this color, skin color. You are that gender. You are part of that tribe. You are. It's very, here in New York, you really feel it.
Yeah, and that's how we look at people. We don't look at the essence of the person. We see, well, that person is that, therefore I need to be this way, which is exactly the moral of that story with the monk. I mean, I see it even in my work. People treat maybe indigenous people a certain way, for the worse and also for the better. But for the better in the sense that they look at them as somehow maybe more elevated or less elevated. But it's getting away from the essence. And I think that's something so many people experience, is there's very few people, maybe the Buddha and Jesus, who really, they are themselves, because they've completely taken away all of those layers. And so it doesn't matter. I'm speaking to a peasant, I'm speaking to a king, it's no different. I see the essence of that person. There's nothing in me that's left to respond to them in any different way. So why do you think that's important? Because that was something you were really speaking about, is like on the street, interacting with people, meeting people, like overcoming that fear, overcoming that anxiety, overcoming seeing that person as higher status, as because we all do that. Like that, those stories are running in all of our minds. And for me, that's one of these things, all of these like spiritual paths or even plant medicine, it's actually trying to strip away these layers. And that's also what you're saying. But why do you think that's so important, to strip away those layers and to be able to interact with people in a way that's free, in a way that's flowing?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because it's stripping away the layers, and also when you're, like I would say, like, I'm not up on a mountain hiding, or not, I wouldn't say hiding. I'm not up in a mountain being a monk. And that's not hiding. I'm just saying I'm not up there. I'm down here. I came down from the mountain to be in the mix. And I can tell you, like, I walk out this door, and there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. And you can have in 1, 2, or 3 blocks, you can see the most beautiful images, the most beautiful people. You can see the most psychotic people getting inches from your face. You can smell the worst smells. Someone could unjustly bang into you. All kinds of things can happen that your ego has to deal with in that 3-block period. And you can react to all of them, in a positive, negative, this way, and definitely do it and have done it. So it's like we're in a city, in a place, or in a town. When you're in life, when you're engaged in life, you're engaged with other people. And when you're engaged with other people, that's going to naturally have your ego react every day. Not that you don't have an ego, not that having an identity can be healthy, is healthy, but over attaching to it is the problem. So, for example, I'll meet a lot of men specifically that have that Mr. Nice Guy syndrome. So it appears that they're totally free of all this stuff we just talked about. They're always nice, they're always helpful, but really they're disconnected in another way. They're not feeling like, for example, if you see someone you're attracted to, something biologically, chemically happens, your eyes widen, your pupils dilate, adrenaline starts coursing through your veins at the possibility that you and that person could become one in some way. You and that person could have sex, could have love, could have create a world together, whatever it is that happens in less than time.
Create life.
Yeah. So it's when you go up connecting with that person, it's not to, that's there. and it's the same as an actor getting on a stage in front of 5,000 people. You walk out like he just walked into his bathroom. You know, I mean, the truth is they say those kind of guys are throwing up in buckets before they walk out there. Adrenaline's coursing through the thing. So it's learning how to use that feeling and be like a pilot in a storm, in turbulence. You know, and that's what's fun about it. Or like comfortable being uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable meeting new people, tuning into them, being vulnerable in front of them. It's uncomfortable. But so the layers that you remove in this way that I'm helping remove are also at the same time that you have a natural born desire, like a instinctual desire, whereas not an egoic desire. An egoic desire would be like, I have to get the phone numbers today. I have to get laid 17 times this week. I have to, whatever, you know, or I have to have the most beautiful husband the world has ever seen, and he has to have this, and that, and I can present him to people. This is ego kind of love. People treating each other like objects, you know, and the classic paradigm is a man, success object, woman, beauty object. But it can be all over the place. Somehow you're just this object, you know, and not seeing the people. So what I'm doing is just really helping them tap in, you know, to their own true interests and passions, what they really want. And even though it's just like removing those layers, yes, but they keep coming back. And it's really having a process to overcome resistance, having a process, a way to, in the moment that all these things arise, where your ego comes up, to transcend it. So I personally haven't found like a way to be egoless, but I found a process to transcend my ego in the moment that it arises. That doesn't mean I always do it. Absolutely not. But I do it a lot more than I used to. And it helps people connect. It helps me connect with people on a deeper level. I'm transcending my ego in the moment it arises. And like you said, it's a political climate. It's a little less than it was, you know, last year. But it's a political climate, and it's very easy. And when everyone's looking at you and they're putting you in a box, and then you start to go into that box, and then you get reactive from that box. So we've definitely never been challenged, like in my lifetime at least, but like this before, as you know, because it really was, you know, and maybe all those things were there, but we were supposed to not look at each other like that. Yeah. So there's all these ways that we can get reactive from inside that box, and that's why I think in this time now, meditation of some kind, some way, some process of stilling your mind daily. Frequently tapping into your higher self, having a meeting with beyond yourself, because all kinds of things happen in life, and then they bother you, and you loop on them, and you have to kind of keep finding ways to go beyond your mind, and that's what I found and teach to people. Here's a way you can go beyond your mind. That doesn't mean you don't have to work on the beliefs you have, because we have to work on changing our beliefs, which happens over time. Like if you begin to believe that I am more than enough, I am an overflowing cup of joy and abundance. Being social is healthy. Men are, a lot of times people have negative opinions. Like a man could be like, oh, women just, some guys with negative voices, like, oh, they just want guys with money, or men just won't use women for sex, or, you know, some people are, you know, same sex relationships. So, but they have this opinion of the people they desire that's negative, and it keeps them from connecting with that person, with the other people. And it's like reframing those beliefs about yourself, whatever they are, reframing the beliefs about being a social human being, about flirting. You know, some people have really like, oh, you know, they feel like they're being bad, or doing something bad by giving a compliment, or telling someone they're, they have a way about them, and I had to say hi, or various things, physical touch, all kinds of things. So it's like learning to be able to give and receive freely with other people. and that other people that want to participate doing that with you. Not everyone does, So it's just learning those processes through this. Is just dealing with yourself, but changing the beliefs is something that you practice every day, but it happens more over time. That suddenly, like, my new resting place was nowhere near the resting place to when we met, and neither is yours. But it's like, I don't have depression and anxiety, and generally my mood is high. Generally, I feel great about things. So it's like I found a serene resting place that happened over time. But what I found with when you find a way to get into the now, like acting or things like that, you literally transcend your mind and you become right in the now, and there's no problem right away. Automatically, you're no longer whatever your history was, whatever you've been future projecting. You're no longer that. You're just here, and anybody can do that today, and that's what's so cool. You can do it today, and you can create momentum around that today, and that was what excited me and still excites me about that.
So when you're saying that, just for clarification, it's this idea that literally, because there only is present. And I think for a lot of people that may sound obvious, that may also sound very strange. But in reality is everything. Right now, in this moment, that's all there is. Mm. The past and the future just come as mind thoughts. I think about the past or I imagine the future, but it's never real. It's always just a thought, which is always ephemeral. And by really being present, like by really being aware, there literally can be no problems, because every problem is a thought. Like, even if someone comes and attacks me, it's only a problem when my mind starts to go to, oh my God, what if this happens? What if this happens? In the present, there's just a reaction. There's a dance. He swings, I move, I swing. And then after, maybe there's a problem when I think about, oh my God, what the hell did I just do? What just happened?
Right.
Why do you think relationships are so important? Because, even in a lot of the work I do, that's one of the main things people are looking for, is like they want to find their partner. And I think so much is just, it's a very primal, natural human longing for union, for the individual, but also through the physical world, that manifestation of duality, like finding someone who completes us. So it's interesting, because your work, you could really do it in any level. It could be in business relationships, right, or employee-employer relationships, but there's something that's very powerful, very primal, and I think something that almost everyone has some unresolved issues around, which is like a life's partner, someone to share that journey with. And as you were saying, there's so many stories around that, whether it's from a man's point of view, a woman's point of view. There's all of these layers, and some of those are socially given to us. As societies, we say a man needs to be this way, a woman needs to be this way. Within a family, there's you need to find someone who's like this or who does this. They have to be a doctor. And then a lot of internal, like, this is what I need my partner to be in order to be happy. Like, they have to. I was listening. There's these two guys I like on YouTube. They're called Abba and Preach, and they make some good videos. But there was a video of some woman, and she was on a dating show, and she gave a list of what her future potential partner needed to be. And the list was literally like 150 things.
Wow, really?
And it's like, you're never going to find that.
Yeah, that's someone who's not very open, Yeah, you're allowed to make a list, like, of qualities I like, You definitely, but you want to be open to certain things, and there should be on that list some things that are deal breakers, like things like they lie all the time, right? That's a deal breaker. Or things like they're verbally abusive. That would be a deal breaker, right? That's it. They're a really great person, but they have a bad temper, and that's it. That can be a deal breaker, you know?
I remember Eckhart Tolle said it really well one time. He said, everyone has a pain body. This is with his German accent. Everyone has a pain body. But when looking for a partner, it would perhaps be wise to find someone whose pain body isn't very big.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. I have always found that somebody with a big pain body, myself, you know, to get in and trigger each other to the point of no return. Yeah, that is nice. And then I have found you know, and I think it was, for me personally, it was that's what I loved. I remember my first girlfriend. She was so nice. And I was like, I always wanted to have a scene in a movie, you know? Let's make a drama. Let's do it. Like, I was looking for that fire all the time. So I always thought that was way more exciting. But now I prefer the low pain body, you know, in myself and in her. You know, but, you know, I think it's also about people being able to deal with each other's pain bodies, you know, being able to deal with having, you know, set them off. I'm trying to do the word you use, trigger, to kind of become a weird word, but it is. You trigger someone because something happened. Like I was recently taking a road trip, and was on the road with my bestie ex-girlfriend, and we're getting along great the whole day. It's like a magic dream day, and then someone starts honking behind me because there's this guy driving too slow in front of me. It's like midnight, I'm tired, someone's honking, and he's coming up right on the car. I'm feeling the stress. So I start flashing my lights. Hey, come on, man, get out, get into the right side. And then she's like, don't bother him, don't do that. I'm like, and there's like two cars coming up around me, getting all boxed in. I'm like, she's like, and I'm tired, man. I'm like, and she's like, and I start honking. Oh, you can't honk at him. You're like, all of a sudden I'm the bad guy, right? So then, you know, that set me off, you know. And then, but it was like a moment of like, that's what's so strange about life. We had only serenity all day, and then 1 second. But it was like, there was obviously some pain body I have around this kind of tense situation. And there was some pain body she has around probably me. Just I don't know exactly. You know, I had to make me the bad guy in the situation. So
An archetype of being the nice guy, not bothering people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, we got past it, but everyone's okay. But that was one of those moments where the pain bodies were triggered, and there it is, a totally calm guy, the awakened lifestyle. There it is. Now we're having a fight in a car because somebody was driving too slow in front of me. Like, think about how dumb it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what was the last one?
I guess, I mean, you've kind of answered it, but like, why focusing on relationships is so important? Yeah,
I know. Definitely, we all want to be heard, listened to, seen, understood. Such a powerful, so important. And with friends, you know, real connections, with lovers, with partners. We really all do crave that. And of course, we live in a time where societal structures have broken down, so it's not as like, hey, you have to have a wife and 3 kids by this age and do this and this and that. So all that's different. But any way you slice it, any way you put it, we really want to partner up with somebody. We really want to connect in with somebody. Having a significant other that knows us, that sees us, that we see, that we can give to, that we can give love to, that we can give appreciation to, that we can uplift. This is a really important part for all people, and there's different ways to do that. So, you know, with friends. So if some people have, you know, really don't want to be in that kind of relationship, then they need to really deepen their friend circles, their community circles. We become so much more every time we connect with another person. And this is one of the my main things I tell people is every time you meet a new person, every time you take a risk to meet a new person, you bring the possibility of 2 human beings making connection. And there's nothing more you'll ever do in life that's more important than you connecting with another person. Because worlds are built, families are built, ideas come into the world that can be expressed, communities are made, cities are made. So it's just 2 human beings connecting. And we are all the connector, and it's really our duty to become the best connector we can be. And that is, I think, from my perspective, our prime function. Connecting to myself, really connecting to myself, being in tune with myself, being here in this moment, and a lot of it has to do with observing, what's happening with me, not resisting what's happening with me, accepting what's happening within me, looking at the moment, noticing this plant, noticing the way everything's set up here, in the room, noticing the room around me, noticing you, noticing your body language, noticing the way you listen, noticing that, and tuning in, and then I become way more present and not here. And then it's really just connecting in with the other person. And when you look at it in a noble way, especially in a dating realm, because people really, for some reason, it's like, it doesn't look like a noble endeavor. But it really is. You're out there meeting people, you're connecting with people, you're exploring yourself in the world with other people in this thing, and you're making connections. And when you can give it that more noble thing, you'll treat people better when you meet them, and you'll treat yourself better too. And you'll be, and a lot of people get nervous on dates. When we look into another person's eyes, we're confronted with our insecurities, our inadequacies in the moment. And in some ways, like an actor on a stage in front of many people, and she loses her lines, forgets her lines. It's that moment of like, what now? Like, end of the world. And learning how to deal with that moment and breathing through it and being still in it and finding peace in it. That's like, something that can happen every time you're out with a person and you're trying to connect with them because there's some reason you want to connect with them and you feel uncomfortable, but you find peace with it. For me, I'm generally relaxed. Like, my resting state is total chill because I've been through so many angsty situations over and over and over again that it kind of burnt that part of me away. Yeah. Although I won't say it's not there ever. I just have to I've created a habit of overcoming it.
It's interesting. Yeah. I also noticed a couple times in this podcast, I think it's always been over Zoom when I'm doing those, but usually I have, based on what the other person is saying, I have a question that kind of arises so that when that next segue comes, I kind of know what I'm going to ask them. But there's a few times where that's like gone, like I forget about it, and then there's this real like expanse because there's no question there, there's no thought, and it's actually a bit scary at first. Like, I feel that adrenaline coming, the heart starts racing, and I think some is out of respect for them, for time. I also never cut, so if there's some super long awkward pause, like, that's just going to be there.
Yeah.
But it's this fascinating thing where actually everything becomes expanded. It's like all of those barriers then just drop away. And it's like there's no question. And it's this very interesting space where then it's like this tug of war between almost being content there, which is scary also in a way, and then also trying to somehow come back to the dynamic of the interaction we're having. Yeah. So when you're taking someone out on the street, what are some of the common things that you see that hinder people really being able to open up and to share and to meet people and to connect, and then what are some of the tools that you use to really try and help them like ease into that? Because even ease is a really interesting word, because a lot of even this podcast is around dis-ease. And I think a lot of people don't even necessarily realize like the root of that word, like disease, dis-ease, like the organism isn't in a state of ease. And then problems begin to arise. Seemingly problems begin to arise. Although even those are usually just some natural response that arise from that state trying to bring the organism back into harmony. but from that place of ease, like I guess what are the common hindrances, and then what are like some tools, techniques, things you say that help that person like find that. Often we use the word flow now. That's become a really common term.
Yeah. I actually made a course called Art of the Flow, tapping into the flow. You know, and the flow is you get into the flow by creating momentum, and you create momentum by simply starting from the smallest place you can start to go from not doing to doing, whatever that is, and whatever you're working on. So if it was working out, the smallest thing I might be able to do is one push-up. That's not doing to doing. And oftentimes that cascades into more push-ups, and more things, and jumping jacks, and suddenly you're looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I can be ripped. I could really do this,
Suddenly you're doing, what's it called? Bobby's...
I did Barry's boot camp. Wow, very sore from that. Yeah, that was... No, because I have created a nice routine at home, but I was like, I always feel like being a New Yorker, everyone's always going to these classes and all those things, and it's very easy to get distracted at home, It's like a challenge to not look at the phone and things. And to push yourself way beyond where So I kept telling my friends to go to these classes, invite me, and finally I said yes yesterday. So I'm paying for it. It's intense, really intense. Anyway, yeah, but you know what? I look at it like that, but also I start as it's a tale of two journeys, and everybody who comes to me is coming for they come into me with their own beautiful ways of connecting with other people. Everybody has a persona. Everybody has something that is beautiful and can connect with other people. And some people just haven't developed all these muscles. There's muscles. Like a lot of people live 100% in their head. They walk down the street, headphones in, either down here on the phone or just in their little world, and they don't notice what people walking by them. They don't even see people looking at them. They just totally zoned out of the present moment. So they're not great observers. And really being a great artist or being great at, really being present is being a great observer. So really teaching people to tune in is level one, right? But the first thing I say to everyone, this is a tale of two journeys. Your inner journey and the outer journey. And the inner journey is really the journey. And the outer journey is I'm going to teach you some skills, and we're going to develop some new ways of communicating that make you more engaging, more fun, allow you to be more vulnerable. I'm going to teach you all those things, and a lot of them are really simple. Like I can just like for example, hello is really simple. Hello to a stranger. All of a sudden, if I say hi to my someone I'm really comfortable with, I'm like, hey, what's up? How are you? How you been? What have you been doing? If I say hi to an attractive stranger, all of a sudden it could be like, hi. She don't look at me. So there's because this is emotional blocks, right? So the emotional journey is when it's just like a Zen in the Art of Archery, a great book. He learns archery to learn Zen. And over a 10-year period, it's a great book. But it's like you can take any aim and make it a Zen-like practice. This practice of being in the now, this practice of being one with life, one with the moment, this practice. And archery obviously is a skill, right? It's a skill he had to learn, but he was really learning something deeper through it. And it's the same thing, like a skill of meeting people in everyday places, all around you. That's a specific skill set, or however you the skills of having developing tools that help you be a better connector, really a better listener, developing the ability to share your interests and passions in a way that's engaging to other and interactive with other people. When you observe in someone that something's unique about them, like, wow, you're a really great listener. You really absorb on a deeper level what other people are saying to you. That's really unique. I appreciate that. Being able to say that to someone because it's true, because you've observed it, and say it back to them is a specific skill to learn, and people really struggle with it. Giving people a compliment. For example, the best compliment I ever got one time I was hanging out with this guy. You might remember him. Cool guy. We both met at Dr. Jubb's place called Andoni, right? And he's like a Greek god carved out of marble, really like the perfect human specimen, Kundalini master, perfect diet, just seems to be living on the ether, living outside normal life, and he looked like a Greek god who comes down from the mountain to pick, to take what he wants and go back to the mountain. So, but we met him, and he ended up just being a cool guy. And one day we were both out in California. He moved there, and I was out in LA, and we connected. And we went to some class. He took me to some yoga class, and then we went to like a bar, but we were just drinking water. And he just looked at me and he said, like this, took a moment, sat back, looked at me and said, "You're a cool guy. You're cool." And I was like, it's like hit me, I thought he was cool for sure, but no guy ever turned to me and gave me a compliment like that my whole life, in that way. Maybe like after having done something like a sport or acting or something, but it was just no reason, nothing, just that's it. Now, inherently, I knew about myself. I'm a cool guy. I am. I mean, I can be. I have my moments, But for that guy to reinforce that was a very powerful moment, And where I'm from, in the suburbs of Philadelphia, it was like the best compliment you get. It's like some backhanded compliment. That sure.
You don't look like a douche today.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly the kind of. You don't look. Hey, this looks good. You don't look like a douche today. Let's go. Yeah, and then that's the compliment, right? And that's very funny. So. Anyway, but really learning to meet someone just for a moment in a coffee shop and be talking to them, getting to know them, and watching how, really being tuned into them. Like they're expressing themselves with great enthusiasm and moving their hands a lot, or whenever they talk about a certain subject, their eyes light up, and you say, I really love when you talk about something you're passionate about. Your whole body activates, and you're just saying what you see and saying it back to them. Or various other things. And these, when someone makes a list, they can make a list of qualities they admire in others, qualities that they want in a partner, like someone who's a great listener, someone who's independent but also needs me, someone who's gets my sense of humor, someone who etc. Whatever it is. So you can make that list, and then when you see it in those people you're connecting with, you can say it back, right? And if you see things like someone could be very physically appealing to you, but then you see things like qualities you really don't like internal qualities, like they're really selfish, or they seem thoughtless, or they just seem to be terrible at listening to you, and not really, only love talking about themselves. Those are qualities that would disconnect, So it's like, that's a better way to look at it than they have this, they have that, all that kind of thing. So so it's really important, obviously, to be in relationships, but the relationship with yourself is the inner journey. And I give these 6 mantras, and I'll just rattle them off. We start like as if this is our guide. This is whenever we go out into the heat, when we go out and we push ourselves forward, we have a blueprint to operate from, instead of everything feeling like chaos. And something to remind ourselves that we are a good person and that what we are doing is good. So my instincts are good. My intuition is good is another way to say that. Whatever word resonates with you, but that I'm really, and I've been denying my intuition, I've been denying my instincts. When I have them, I've been suppressing them. And maybe, and you can look at where that is in your life. And a lot of the times it's around connecting with other people. I want to meet that person. There's someone I want to meet. No, you don't want to do that. You're not good enough. The voices come in. You're not good enough. You didn't do your Barry's boot camp this week, right? You haven't worked out in 3 weeks, or you're not rich enough, or Something's off with I didn't sleep enough. I'm not enough. Okay, first way I won't now. So I'm denying my intuition, denying my instincts that are speaking to me from a much higher level than my mind. It's basically the reason we're all here is instinct, and it's evolved us for, I don't know, millions of years, right? And we're all here because of that, but we're denying it, blocking it. So then it's like, well, the situation's not perfect enough anyway. The person's there, and these people are there, and this is that. Or then it becomes to live with yourself. I wouldn't want to meet them anyway. They look like they'd be, a mean person, or they look like, boring, or whatever. Right? So that's what the mind does, and it eviscerates over and over. So really tuning in and giving honoring your very powerful intuition, honoring your very powerful instincts, and looking at them as your guide in life, and really learning to listen to them. And if you have listened to them in other areas of your life, look how it's really served you, even though it may not have seemed like it would in the moment. And look at how it didn't serve you every time you denied your instincts. Usually it turns, if you really deny them hardcore for long enough, it turns into depression, right? Because you leave your mind keeps saying, I have to be in this circumstance, I have to be in this relationship, I have to be in this box. And your interest is screaming, no. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take medication because my intuition won't shut the fuck up. My instincts are saying, I'm going to take this medication. I'm not going to deal with the problem. So, and that's a natural thing, right? So I really teach them we take a long moment and we go through this process of my instincts are good. And it becomes a mantra. My instincts are good. Then the next one is, we build on that, is my intentions are good. Like I said before, a lot of people feel like they're bothering someone, like, hey, sorry to say hi to you. I'm not good enough, but I thought I would do it anyway because I wanted to throw myself in front of a bus and then feel really bad about this and never do it again. So it's like realigning yourself and saying, yeah, my intentions are to give. My intentions are to receive and share in pleasurable experiences, from simple hellos to both of us being outside of our head, outside of our mind for a moment, to a great, amazing conversation, to the feeling of connection, to great sex, to a mind-blowing hug, a kiss, a relationship, a family, babies. That's my intentions. My intentions are good. Not to take, not to hurt, but to give, share, and receive in pleasure.
That's such a huge one.
Yeah.
Because also there are so many of these conditions that are put on people, and they think by doing something it means they're bad.
Right.
Because we're told if you do that, you're bad. And that's such a huge thing. Like, what are my intentions? If my intentions are good, then that's coming from a genuine place, an authentic place. And very few things in life, although there are some, like, obviously, like rape is bad. We can, I think, categorically say that. But most things in life, like you said, like talking to someone, like, that can come from a bad intention place, and therefore it's probably bad. But if it's coming from a place of good intention, that means it's good. I think sometimes even things that are that simple, like it's hard for us because we just like to categorize things, like,
right.
And then we cut ourselves off from life because that's like a block, that's a wall now. And it's, even in a lot of like plant work that I'm doing, like, what is the intention? The intention is huge. Like any good doctor, before they work, they set an intention. Like, my intention is to help this person. My intention is to heal this person. And I think even just naming that, like, completely shifts the dynamic.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's like, there is like let's go like the bad doctor or the bad psychiatrist who started to use the practice for his own devious ideas or whatever. There's Or even you could say pharmaceutical companies, are their intentions good or bad? I mean, to make profit is, over actual healing, is that a good intention, or, is that a nefarious intention? So, so really setting that, reminding yourself, that's my intention. That's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from this place. I'm operating from a good place. So my instincts are good, my intentions are good. However, and this is an important piece, detaching from any outcome whatsoever. So my instincts are good, my intentions are good. Sometimes they're misunderstood. Not everybody cares that you have good intentions. Not everybody's on your frequency. Not everyone sees it the same way. Not everyone's gonna like you. So it's coming to this place that I'm trying to do things without an agenda. Like, for example, if I said to you, wow, you're really a handsome guy. And you're like, no. And you keep walking. And I say, fuck you, man. That's like, it's the same as if you've ever walked on the street and there's someone who's asking for money. And they're like, hey, you got $1? And you say, sorry, man, I don't. Oh, go fuck yourself. It happens here, because people aren't some mentally ill people in the streets. But the point is that same idea. Or like they'll say something like, hey, I really love your hat. And I'll be like, oh, thanks, man. Can I have $1? No. Well, you got a fat ass. Whatever. Keep walking, right? But guys do that in nightclubs, especially when they're drinking. That's like a classic thing. Like, hey, let's dance on you fucking bitch. Stuff like that kind of thing. So that's all primal ego, unconscious state, So,
and also the internal expectation, because that's also something a lot we talk about in plant work, is having an intention. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I about to potentially go into a lot of pain and suffering?
Right.
Well, hopefully it's for something good. That's the intention, right? It's for healing.
Right, yeah.
But then having to set aside the expectation. Because often with the intention, we think we know how it's going to work.
Right.
Like, if I have a good intention, then the person's going to be kind and gentle. But we never know, right?
That's
like,
true.
We can never control what's happening outside. So it may come in a way like we have no idea what's. It could come in like 180 degrees of what our intention was. But if we don't have the expectation, then we can flow with that. We can be open to that.
Yeah, and we can flow with it, And of course, there's always a part, like if someone gives you bad energy, it doesn't feel good because you're opening yourself to it. You're like, okay, I'm here, I'm open, I'm listening, I'm opening. And if someone gives you like, or whatever, but it's learning to a process, it's a practice, letting go of that energy and learning to say, you know what, I'm not for everyone. Or, you know what, maybe I was a little weird. Maybe I'm just, I haven't been very, for example, I'm working with a client now who's a very high-powered, tech god, tech guru. Super cool guy, great guy to have a conversation with. But he feels very awkward. Arms are always crossed, things like that. When he gets in social situations that aren't in his foray, or aren't him being the leader of the company, he feels very awkward. And that's something he's dealing with. That's why I'm working with him. But, so it's really coming to this place that I'm not for everyone, but really reminding yourself all the great things about yourself. Hey, I'm a good friend. I'm a good listener. I'm whatever you can remind. I am a cool guy. I'm fun. I have a good sense of humor. Just remind yourself, like have that self-talk. Don't try to say something you're not. Like, hey, I'm a multi-billionaire. I mean, you can say that if you want to vision that. That's great. But just remind yourself the simple things of all the great things you are, and then be more of that. Yeah, I am a nice guy. I am a kind person. Yeah, I am funny. Yeah, and you just give yourself, my instincts are good, my intentions are good, I'm not for everyone, and I'm okay with that. Actually, it's great. The more I accept that, the better it's going to be for me. I'm not for everyone. I'd love them to share in this fun moment with me, or to have a great date with me, or to feel a great connection with me, but if not, that's okay. I'll go somewhere else, and I'll keep moving on. And I'll go find someone who wants to connect with me, who wants to play with me, who wants to explore more with me. And that is the process and the practice. It's a big practice of letting go. Right? And so what I do with those first 3 of 6 mantras is I build a practice around that called the social practice. Hey, today we're going to go out and go outside of our social comfort zone 5 times. And we can all define that differently. But it could be as simple as waving at 5 people, giving a compliment to 5 people as you walk by. It can be a lot of things. It could be having a conversation with someone in a bookstore about books. It can be things that, it can be going to an art gallery and talking to other people at the art gallery about the art you see. It can be this opening things up. Or even in my case, I said I'm going to go to Barry's boot camp because there's also a social component. There's also other people component and connecting with people that I wouldn't normally connect with. That's like another social foray for me. So then the next 3 are a simple thing of I've got a job to do. It's about taking ownership. Taking ownership of that I am the leader of my own life. That I am the one who must take all these risks. And that can manifest in different ways. But like that basically if I don't take these risks, nothing changes. I don't have a new circumstance in life. These are uncomfortable risks. So I've got a job. It's my job to take every single risk, every single time. And in a traditional classic, and it really does play out this way often, is that if it was a man meeting a woman, it's often his job to initiate the conversation. Doesn't mean it's locked in stone. It happens the other way. It doesn't mean the whole thing can't switch around in all different ways and manifest in all kinds of ways. But generally, if I'm working with a guy, I say it's my job to take every single risk, from hello to will you marry me? Just kind of exaggerate that. But it's his job to lead that, and in that case, her job to reciprocate. But if I was coaching with a woman, I would say the same thing. It's your job to take every single risk. And what risks aren't you taking that you need to take? For example, a woman could be walking down the street and see a guy who's handsome, but not take the risk to really smile at him or look him in the eyes for an extended period of time, or wave at him because of the same fear, the fear of rejection, the fear I look like a fool, the fear I lose something by giving something over and over. So it's learning to let go of that and become the risk taker. And it's a huge deal. And then, of course, my instincts are good, my intentions are good. Sometimes they're misunderstood. I'm not for everyone. I've got a job to do. And it's not personal. Really connecting with other people, our need, like you said, our need to connect with other people is as personal as birds flying south for the winter or bees collecting pollen and going from one thing to another. It's as human can be. And we live in a society that's doing what it's doing, and we're here, a part of it, and we're operating within it. But it's as human can be. The desire and the need to connect, and people that would make other people feel shame for that are really, really in the wrong. So, but it's the truth is there's some person that most people have in their head that's making them feel shame for that, and are not even out here in the real world. Even though it may appear, like that, there's like some gifs of like someone screaming like they hate men or they hate women, or there's or people are watching and judging. There's some old granny watching and judging from and they have them in their own head more than they're in real life. And it's learning that this isn't personal. This is human, and you are playing your part in this. The difference between us, perhaps, and the flock of seagulls is that we're just not as tuned in with our instincts. So then the final thing of that is that it's the most important job in the world. It's the job of the connector. And it's your job to go out and connect with other people and understand that there's nothing more beautiful, nothing more profound, nothing more important in your life than connecting with other people. And you could see that. People have built empires, but yet they're disconnected from friends and family and lovers. They have found ways to fulfill base needs because of their empires. And then there's people who build empires and have it all. And that's the more beautiful life. They're really connected, You can think of many people that seem to have that going. Yeah, so it's really about that. But again, it's not like I never define what lifestyle somebody wants to live. Like, for example, many people have worked with me and met their spouses while they were with me, in front of me, or during our timed process of working together, or shortly thereafter, because that's the vision they had for their life. They wanted to be married. They wanted to have kids. They wanted to do that. But not everybody has that vision for their lives. People want to be connected in other ways, but we must be connected, and deeply. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you see the work you're doing kind of staying the same, or have you noticed there's been a change of flow over the years? Like, is it moving towards something, or it's just kind of always unfolding, and you also don't really know where it's going?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I have a vision for it, and I've been really tuning back into it lately. But yeah, when you start something, it was fun for me to do the way I was doing it. It was where I was personally at. And then after a while, it's like you created like a musician who created an album. They have to go out and sing because people want to hear that song, and that's the song you promoted, and that's the song that took off. And that seemed beyond my control, I did what I could. The universe said, yeah, you can do this. You can do this one. And I was like, all right, I'll do this one. I'm enjoying it most of the time. But yeah, for me, it really is now just about taking those principles and more, and really sharing it with all people in all ways, not just always about dating, but that's the niche, dating, relationships, connections, friendships, but really taking that very powerful teaching that I've discovered and just sharing it with as many people as possible in every situation, and whatever they're, wherever they're at in their life, because everything I said is a universal. And it's a way of seeing it. It's another way of practicing it, another way of being. And I would say, if we were to look at the world we're living in I would think personally the world was better before Instagram. Everyone was less of a cliche, or Twitter, where everything wasn't binary. There's obviously some benefits of those things for maybe creating a brand for yourself and things like that. But there's this thing where everyone's becoming an algorithm, almost like you're just an algorithm. You're just that thing, and that's what's happened. So we're almost becoming like artificial. We're like becoming what artificial intelligence wants us to be. We're becoming robots, so to speak. So it's like, how can I break out of that every day and be a human fucking being? How can I be a human being? Really not just swiping and connecting and ordering people to my house and ordering food. How can I go out and participate in the world and break free my true persona now in this world now? How can I be one more person that does that and stops the madness? And that's really what I would be teaching: how to break free, how to create this social habit of really connecting with other people that aren't like you. And the pandemic, one of the things it did was really put people in their tribes, their little internet bubbles. They're all tuning into this, and then you get in the little whatever, and people are only like one-dimensional. There's no human beings in these things. They're all one-dimensional. They're all pumping something, promoting something, trying to get more followers, more likes, more of this, more of that. And if there is somebody that's not doing it, you don't know, because they're not doing it, and they're not finding the people that will, go into their thing. But what happened is there was a major breakdown of society. For example, like in New York, people love sneakers. All people, they love sneakers. They love cool sneakers. So I meet people literally just because I'm wearing cool sneakers that I would never have met. Hey, I love your kicks. Yeah, thanks, man. And you start talking about this thing that seems minor, but it's a way that our society has fabric. Where if I go to a coffee shop and there's someone that's a college student and I'm not in college, and they have a different point of view about a lot of things than me, but if they were only in their little bubble and I was only in my little bubble, we became enemies. But then I start talking to them again, and they start seeing me, and we're just people, and we're hanging, and we're connecting. All of a sudden, all kinds of people that aren't like you, and was the beauty of the way our society flows, is that you deal with everybody, and you connect with everybody, and you try to find the humanity in everybody. And I really think most people are that way, despite what other people might say. And what's happened since we've been back open is that's happening again. And all of a sudden there seems to be less social chaos and less tribal stuff and all that. So it's like, but not just letting it happen. It's like actively going out and making it happen, for yourself and for everyone else.
I mean, that's huge, because that's really, there's all this speak about community and things, but really community is like a diverse group of people. Like even traditionally, it's like you had the cobbler, you had the baker, you had the tailor, you had the farmer. Like all of those people are bringing something different, and it's something that really seems like, you were even saying like one of the guiding principles you teach people is like this idea that like putting aside other people's views of me because I am different. And we preach these things like diversity, and yet so much of the public discourse is conformity. You have to think this way. You have to do these same things. And if
Right.
you don't, then you're evil somehow, which is completely against this idea of diversity, like diversity of thought, diversity of lifestyle, diversity of choices.
That's why we moved to New York.
Yeah.
And it did change.
Yeah. And, like recognizing that fundamental, like uniqueness of all people. And by bringing all of that together, we actually do create a community. Like when you have all of these like different people, different jobs, different professions, different lifestyles, different ways of viewing. And as you were saying, that's such an important thing. Because when we are in a community or society that only thinks one way, that says the same things, that watches the same channels, it's actually, that's leading towards death. Like there's no creativity, there's no renewal, there's no change. Like these fundamental principles of life, that's entropy. And life is the opposite of entropy. It's change. It's a fundamental quality of life. So I think that's so important, what you're trying to do, even with this idea of interpersonal community, and then on a bigger scale too. Like that really is, it's life-giving in a way. And do you have a sense of, because so much of your work is interpersonal, like working with people, and it also seems like so much of the way we're moving as a society is digital, is online, which in a way there is a direct experience, but we're also removed in a way from like the physical senses, which are so powerful. I mean, it's very different, even with this podcast. Like it's different if I'm interviewing someone online versus in person. Like there's just something that's different. There's an intangible. There's, without getting too hippie, like there's an auric field. There's energy, like there's a presence when you're next to someone. You can feel things.
Right.
There's something that's different.
Yeah, that's really true.
But do you think that's? Do you think you or even we can find ways to still do that without going too much into this? As you said, like the food is just delivered to us, which is very different rather than going into a restaurant, like especially in New York, right? Sitting next to these people, you're like this, which a lot of people from outside of New York don't like.
Right.
But I think people in New York, there's actually something like you begin to like that. It's like there's that physical proximity. There's something that's happening. There's an energy that's created around being around other people.
It's amazing. And to build a lifestyle, for example, I don't shop at Costco. I mean, you can go if you get the deals, get the deals. I'm not telling you not to get a deal, but you're probably not going to meet anybody you want to meet there. I mean, it might be, but be open. But I'm saying generally, I don't shop for the month. I don't shop for 3 months. I go and I shop out. I live in a city and I can do this, so everyone's in a different circumstance. But I do, I get some fundamentals I need to have every day. But generally, I go to the supermarket every day. I go to, sure, it's cheaper for me to just buy my favorite tea and have it at home, and I do. But I still go out and I get it at the place, and I'm around people, and I'm picking up the energy, and I'm open to meeting new people. I'm open to connecting with people. For me, I love absorbing that energy. So I'm putting myself in places, even that New Barry's Boot Camp thing, or if I go to a meditation class, Like, I meditate at home. It feels great. I cut out the commute. I don't have to walk somewhere. I don't have to walk home. I found my practice. But going to the class with other people of the same kind of minds who are experiencing the same kind of thing, that's very powerful. So I'm adding that into my routine. All these things, how can I be more connected to other people? And to be honest, I went to something the other day, and there was people I would not be connecting with otherwise, and all of a sudden we were talking not about this current event stuff. We were connecting on another level. We experienced something together, you know? So, and that's very powerful. And the reason we're friends is because we experienced something together. You know, we connected, and now here we are, some years later, right? Here we are, because we went through like a boot camp. We went through intense moments. We went through real living together, and that's how you make new bonds and new friends. So it's really important to do those little things, like I love jasmine tea. Finding my place to get the jasmine tea. Connect with the people that own it or work there, and whoever's serving you. You know, on a human level, not on a purchase, not on a consumer level. You know, if you can. And there's ways to do that. And then perhaps connect to the people with no agenda in the cafe. You know, whoever's around you, start up a conversation, connect with them, and try to steer away from the hot button topics, you know, like politics or what, you know, we get still dealing with this whatever virus pandemic. Try to stay away from that. It's so easy to talk about. Try not to be boring, you know. Try to connect on a higher level, you know. And if you find yourself going down those things, try to move the energy somewhere else within yourself or with the other person, right? To somewhere higher. Try to really connect with the people around you. Go to a bookstore. So I would say, like, make a small list or a big list of your interests and passions. Things you know, and this is an important way to be an attractive person. Being attractive is being interesting and interested. In order to be interesting, you have to be interested in your own life. So if you're feeling often like stuck or stagnant or depressed, moving backwards, it's because you're not leaning into your interests, leaning into things you want to try, leaning into those things. So a small thing that that I feel slightly passionate about is jasmine tea. You know, I like the jasmine tea. It uplifts me. It's refreshing. Makes my brain just kind of light up in the morning, and I feel the perfect amount of lift without a crash. So now I have an interest. I can go to places that have it. I can meet people. I've actually dated a girl who became my girlfriend for a couple years who owned a tea shop, you know, following my bliss for tea. And also I flirted with all the girls that worked at the shop before I met her. So it was like, but it was flirting, it was socializing, not just the girls, the guys. We were hanging, they became my friends because I was there every day, and we were having, like, unlike most people, I wasn't just having an exchange. I was getting to know them, connecting with them. They, you know, not because I was anybody other than a guy who came in with the right with energy of I want nothing, I need nothing, I'm just here to connect, and it was a special place. So I'm glad I dated the owner, and now I can't go back. All right, but so just even tea and being able to talk about that, why I like it. What about you? What kind of you know, what uplifts you in the morning? You know, that could just create a conversation. Or a bigger interest or passion, like I'm really into playing the guitar. I'm really into learning a specific song from the Rolling Stones. I'm learning this one song. It's a real challenging time getting it, but you know, I love to do it because it really helps me focus, and then I, you know, get to make a song. Or I'm really into, you know, traveling. You know, I've been here, I'm gone, I want to go here. So being able to share those things, and if you're feeling disconnected, it's like, what can I do to get into my interests and passions? That makes you more interesting, rather than, I read tweets all day, right? Which we're all guilty of, I'm sure. I watch news all day and I recite it like, I regurgitate it with some acerbic opinion, right? That's probably different than yours. And that's not interesting. That's low frequency. All that shit's low frequency. I'm taking in other people's thoughts, low frequency thoughts all day, and I'm regurgitating it back to you. So that's your lowest self. So tuning into interest and passions, whether it's like now, doing, hey, you know what, I'm going to join, do a 30-day yoga challenge. I'm going to go, and going outside to do it, going into places to do it. And that's how you meet new people and make new friends. It can happen in a split second. It doesn't have to be hard. And you're going outside, and you're allowed, if you're shy, you're allowed to be shy. It's okay. If you're feeling introverted, it's okay. Go anyway, you know? And just go beyond yourself every day. And then, of course, I find it fun to have a total random quality to things. I'm just going to go walk down the street, and the world brings me things. And where we live here, or where I'm living, is in New York, and that's why I love it. You know, because life just comes to you all day, and if you're there for it, you can really turn what seems to be nothing into something amazing. For example, my ex-girlfriend Bestie, we met 10 years ago on a park bench that I just happened to be in that neighborhood that I'm never in, and she's never in, and she happened to be on that bench on that day. And my first thought was, my back hurts, I'm tired. My first thought was, wow, that's the most beautiful girl I ever saw. My second thought was, my back hurts, I'm tired. Maybe I'll try something like that tomorrow. And then my next thought was, if I just say hi, I win, because I went past that point of resistance. And I did say hi, and 10 years later, we're besties. Besties, you know what I mean? So it's like, and we've been through it all together. So that's like cool, and that happened from something to nothing. And I can name countless experiences I've had, all over the world, where something amazing happened by me taking that risk, and then taking the next risk and the next one, and then something happens. And what's the risk? It's the emotional risk that I'll get rejected, or that I'll do something wrong, or I'll cross the line. But when I know that I'm actually not doing anything wrong, or I'm not crossing a line, or if you do cross a line, and for the other person, everyone has their own boundaries, then you listen, and then you respond accordingly. But mostly the line is all in your mind, Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not, and sometimes and you have to listen. That's what listening's for. So yeah.
Well, great, brother. I think we're coming up on our time limit. We've gone, getting close to 2 hours. So.
Oh, is that right? Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Nice.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
Yeah,
right?
I think we got easy another 2 hours we could talk about.
Yeah, easily,
so we'll make a part
we can do a radio show here, right? Yeah.
Well, it's great, man. I mean, all of these are I think, really important topics for the time we're living in. But even, a lot of this audience, it's about plant work, about growth, spirituality, and everything you're talking about, I mean, directly relates into this work, just in a very different way.
Right.
And yet, I think it's been said so many times, like, truth is one. And you even use that word a few times, like truth. And for me, that's a vital word.
Right.
And something that's actually, I think, really lacking in the time we live is truth.
Right.
And, truth is one, paths are many. And, the more we can bring all of these paths together, I think we get closer and closer to that truth. So
yeah, that's great.
Thank you, brother.
Excellent, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
And
it's great to see you, man.
Great to see you, too.
It's been a long time.
I know. It's been amazing. Well, we hope you move back here,
Yeah.
For at least a little while, right?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with John. I really enjoyed sitting down with him, catching up with him. He's a very dear friend of mine, so that was a really beautiful opportunity for me, and I think he had some really important things to share. So that's it for this episode. As always, if you're able to support the podcast, that's a really big help to me. Patreon is a really good option. It's a subscription service. You can sign up, and that really helps me to continue to bring on these guests. So to all the people who have done that, thank you very much. I deeply appreciate that. If you're able to do that, thank you very much. Now with YouTube, there's also the option to do that directly via YouTube with the join button. You can check that out. There should be a little join button below the video. There's also the option to direct donate via PayPal. I'll put a link to all of those in the show notes. And then if you're not able to do that, subscribing to the show on the YouTube version, turning on the notification bell, liking the video, that's a really big help. And then with the audio version, going on Apple Podcasts, following the show, and leaving a starred rating and a short review. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that. My next conversation is going to be with my friend Alex Eklund. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. We originally had the same coach, who was a guy named Vitor Shaolin Hiberto. And Alex was also one of the teachers there. I have a lot of respect for him. And we got into some of the ideas and principles behind martial arts. Also spoke a lot about Taoism and how that's really influenced it, and a little bit about the meeting point between martial arts and plant work. So that'll be next week's episode. So thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.